Today is the 3rd of June 2026. The time is 9 o'clock. We have agreed to have the meeting today between us and DERCO at 9 o'clock. The agenda is flighted on the screen. Opening and welcome, adoption of the agenda, apologies, presentation by department on quarter 4, South Africa's National Migration Symposium, committee discussion, and closure. I'm going to request that we swap item 4 and 5 because I want to explain item 5. Item 5 becomes item 4 and item 4 becomes item number 5. The reason I'm doing so, honorable members, the speaker has requested about 4 chairpersons of portfolio committees to join her in hosting a delegation here in Parliament at 9:45. So I'm not sure where we will be by then in terms of the meeting. That's why I thought I must deal with item 5 before I go. Do we have a mover for adoption of the agenda?
Yes, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I move for the adoption of the agenda. It's
Thanks,
Honorable
Honorable
Musa.
Musa. Honorable Datlas is seconding. I know your voices now.
Thank you, Honorable.
Yes, apologies. I've already given my apology, Lubabalo.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. Chair, we have 4 apologies, Chair. The first one is from the Minister. He's attending a cabinet meeting. The second one is from Deputy Minister Moraga. She's in India accompanying the Deputy President. And then the third one is from the DG. He's in China. And the fourth one is from Honorable Mishwe, who's also attending another meeting, Chair. The department is led by Deputy Minister Botes and supported by Acting DG, Mr. Clayson Monyela, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lubabalo. Honorable members,
Chair, will you note the hand?
Okay, let me go to the screen so that I can see who is raising hands here. Honorable Datlas, over to you.
Thank you. I'm just adding an apology for Honorable Litchfield Chabalala, please. Thank you.
Okay, noted. Thank you very much, Honorable Datlas, for that. Honorable members, I'm also going to ask that by the time I leave to join the speaker, Honorable Kumbacha should take over and chair the meeting. Is that agreed to?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Agreed.
Yes. Now, on item number 4, honorable members, remember that as the portfolio committee, we hosted an engagement on Africa Month. It was here in Cape Town last week. And the person we invited to make a presentation there on the type of Africa we want was Professor Maloka, Eddie Maloka, who made the presentation. Out of that presentation, we also discussed the theme which was adopted by the African Union of reparations for the former colonies in the African continent. But part of the discussions also were about what is happening now in the country with regard to migration challenges and immigrations in South Africa, which has caused protests that are going on and so on. So, Professor Maloka, after our discussions with him, I then agreed with him that we must have some kind of a come together in a form of a symposium, because from my side, I had written a letter to the Chair of Home Affairs, the Chair of Police, the chair of small business, the chair of DTIC, the chair of defense, the chair of, I think it is COCTA, the chair of COCTA, to have a joint meeting with this portfolio committee chairpersons, so that on behalf of Parliament, as part of parliamentary diplomacy, we can also come in to deal with the challenges that are arising now in South Africa, which people call xenophobia, and they are not xenophobia. I hope that terminology can be erased of saying it's xenophobia developments in South Africa, because there's no specifically targeted hatreds towards foreigners in South Africa. It doesn't exist. So Professor Maloka then agreed with me. This week Monday, a day before yesterday, I had a meeting with Professor Maloka in Pretoria, together with the chief of mission of the International Organization for Migration of the United Nations. That meeting was in Pretoria. Mr. Getachew Yitma. We had that meeting in Pretoria. Now, IOM, honorable members, is International Organization for Migration of the United Nations. It's an agency that deals with migrations in the world. It was established in 1951. It ensures orderly and humane management of migration. It promotes international cooperation and assists in addressing migration challenges and provide humanitarian assistance to migrants and displaced persons. They are based in Pretoria. So in a meeting on Monday between myself, Professor Maloka, and Mr. Yitma, we then agreed to form a collaboration between Parliament and IOM of the United Nations. One of the things we agreed to do is that every year, as part of celebrating and commemorating Africa Month, we will have this symposium. The symposium is aimed at bringing on board people who are in the sector of migration, bringing on board government, the private sector, NGOs, every year during May, to discuss the extent to which we still have challenges and solutions with regard to migration, with specific reference to South Africa, but generally in the African continent. So that is agreed to. That from now onwards, going forward, every May, we will have that symposium to make those reflections. We will work with DERCO to work with them, including Home Affairs, to deal with this particular matter. So it will be the executive arm of the state working with the legislative arm of the state, with NGOs and the United Nations to deal with this particular matter every May, starting from next year. But we suggested that our inaugural come together must be before the end of June, so that we can discuss these matters that are affecting South Africa now before the end of June. Lubabalo will tell us the suggested date to members here so that we can adopt it. That symposium, we are going to ask DERCO to host us in Pretoria, where we will get between 80 and 150 people, bring them together so that we can discuss what is going on now in South Africa, and how we can form partnerships in overcoming some of these matters. So on that day, DERCO will also have a platform to speak. We will have a platform to speak. IOM will speak. Home Affairs will also be able to speak. Law enforcers can also have an opportunity to speak. Traditional leaders will be there. That the National House of Traditional Leaders will be there, because they handle some of the problems in the villages with regard to the tax shops, land ownership, and so on. The structure of there's a structure that deals with the tax shops economy in South Africa. There's a national structure. That national structure will also be brought on board, where we will be dealing with these matters. But it also means, honorable members, that matter which the Portfolio Committee brought 4 years ago of people-centered oversight mechanism, of having in every ward throughout the country some structures that deal with matters of oversight on international relations at the ward level. It means it's becoming more urgent now. Because if we have had those structures functional on the ground in all the wards, they will be handling some of these eruptions that are taking place. So it shows that the committee had foresight. We had foresight in agreeing to the concept paper, developing it, and it was adopted. So the sooner we finish the entire country in establishing those structures, the better. So that our people on the ground can know if you have this issue, you refer to this structure, because it's not only policing that will resolve this problem. You need at the social level to also deal with this matter. So we are on course. So I just thought I need to explain that, honorable members, before I go, so that we understand these initiatives that we are taking, so that our discussion of last week in Cape Town on Africa Month must not just be a discussion. This is one of the practical things arising out of the engagement we have. This UN body will take bulk of the costs, will be taken care of by them. DERCO is here. If they agree, they will give us the venue for free in Pretoria. Catering will be taken over by IOM. Parliament will only be responsible to transport us to Pretoria so that we join in this discussion. Anyway, we are not joining. It's our event. We are inviting people to this particular event. So that's the summary. Lubabalo, what date are we looking at for this so that when members discuss, they can also know the date?
Thank you, Chairperson. The identified date, Chair, is the 26th of June, which is on a Friday, and committees.
Freedom Charter Day.
Yes, Chairperson. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, that's excellent. Honorable members, there we go. That's the summary. We can now have members expressing their views on this matter. DERCO, you can also speak, because we need DERCO to be on board, including our request that you will give us the venue that takes between 100 and 150 people. Honorable Douglas?
No, Mr. Chair, I think that's a brilliant initiative. We've been pushing as a committee since the start of the seventh Parliament that we include the grassroots level people and the processes and mechanisms for reaching the people and getting the people's input into international relations, and then also making sure that whatever we do in terms of outcomes from DERCO is related to, things like job creation, Black economic empowerment, youth empowerment, women empowerment, disabled empowerment. And, this is going to help a lot in terms of that process. And I do think if we can get like something in writing that tells not only us, but the community and parliament, etc., we can get GCIS and others involved, it would be great to have that before the actual event, so that we can also, make sure that, the messaging of what we're trying to achieve actually gets out, and doesn't just become a insider only kind of thing. But we actually need to communicate to people that Parliament is outward focused and grassroots focused as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Douglas. Any other speaker? Any other speaker? We will want to hear from DERCO if our proposal is you are amenable to the proposal of a venue.
Chair, I wanted just to come in.
Yes.
I'll obviously. I think the acting director, the acting DG is here, Ntati Munyala. Maybe if he can just give you an initial reflection.
Yes. Dadomunyel, over to you.
Uh, I was struggling with the mute button. Honorable Chair and honorable members of the committee, Deputy Minister, and colleagues. No, we will work on this, Honorable Chair. We embrace the concept, and we will work with the team to make it happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable Botes, we will release you. I got your message. There's no problem. What we'll do, Honorable Deputy Minister Botes and the team from DERCO, we have done a concept note. We will also send you the concept note so that you can be familiar with what we are dealing with from the side of the portfolio committee. So we will send it to you. I take it, honorable members, that we are all agreeing to the proposal, then we take it forward. Is it okay?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Yes. I'm
Thank you,
now
Jay. All
handing
good.
over to
Agreed.
you. Yes, I'm now handing over to you, Compañero Deputy Minister Botes, to lay the foundation, hand over to your team, then you can be excused along the way to go and adhere to your important appointment elsewhere.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. And I think it strengthened our paradigm that the Minister Lamola, on the occasion of his budget speech, spoke about, that indeed, Chair, that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, both black and white, and that our foreign policy, by implication, is an extension of our domestic priorities to construct a non-racial, non-sexist, and democratic and prosperous South Africa. Of course, Chairperson, today our engagement will, of course, reflect on the last 2 quarters under review. But it is, Chair, an expression of our strategic plan 2025-2030, entitled a Better South Africa, a Better Africa, a Better World. Chairperson, politically, what is important for members of the Portfolio Committee and the public to appreciate is that you will get an appreciation, Chairperson, that DERCO has been performing quite well in terms of leveraging its annual performance plan to actually have, to the extent of recording 96% across both quarters, Chairperson, in terms it foregrounds our commitment as the executive authority to continue to be seized with the implementation of a foreign policy that are premised on South Africa's national interests. We will take members, of course, Chairperson, into confidence on, in particular, global governance matters. We will substantively reflect on the G20 leaders' outcome, and what we continue to do in that regard as a member of the G20. We will take the peace and confidence chairperson of our interim stewardship as a chairperson of SADC, and also reflect on the ambition as it relates to our substantive chairpersonship of SADC. The team will reflect, Chair, about work that are being done in terms of your BRICS, currently under chairship of India, will reflect on IPSA and the work that we are doing broadly as a key proponent, Chairperson, of the broader nuclear disarmament regime, given the leadership that South Africa currently occupies as it relates to the 10th review conference. So we'll reflect on what we have been able to do to advance that type of work. So that is what we'll do multilaterally, and we'll of course conclude with reflections on the ministerial segment of the non-aligned movement under chairship of Uganda. Chair, and you will appreciate, Chairperson, that our bilateral relationships primarily it's anchored on your for the strategic countries, your structured bilateral mechanism, in particular through your binational commission, your BNC, your joint consultative mechanisms, your JCM, senior officials meetings, and more importantly, Chairperson, your demonstration of your high level contact and visitations by President, Deputy President, Minister, and other members of the executive
Your network is waning, Deputy Minister.
authority, and will of course for the Americas Europe network. Chair,
I was saying your network is waning.
Chair, and then we will conclude with a presentation by Ntati Munyela, complemented by Brian in terms of at this point. Over now.
Yeah,
Hello, Chair.
your connectivity is waning. So I was just hoping that you are about to hand over to somebody who might be in a better location.
I've asked DDG Monela, Chair.
Oh, Dr. Mnyela, thanks DM, and go well, DM. Good luck. Dr. Mnyela, over to you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. We do have a presentation. Ms. Musa is going to do the presentation with your permission, Chair. Ms. Musa.
Good morning, Chairperson, honorable members, acting DG, and colleagues. For the presentation this morning, we have the Q3 and Q4 performance report of the department. And going into the actual achievements on slide 3. For the Q3 performance, we have 25 out of 26 targets achieved. That's an overall of 96% achievement. The only non-achievement reflects in Program 2, and this non-achievement is with the South African development financing institutions engagements which could not take place in Q3. The Q4 analysis would be also a 96% achievement. That is 26 of the 27 targets being achieved. Then the non-achievement here also reflects on Program 2, and this particular non-achievement is the SACU meeting that could not take place in Q4. On slide 6, we go straight into the bilateral relations Program 2 for the department. And reflecting on the structured bilateral mechanisms and the high-level visits, also the high-level engagements on political, economic, and social relations, we find that these engagements serve as an important platform for strengthening diplomatic relations, as well as then deepening political cooperation and advancing South Africa's strategic national interest. Across the Q3 and 4, we reflect on, we take the report, the total report is read, but we reflect on a few of the initiatives. The first is we find the South Africa-Namibia midterm review, the South Africa-Mozambique midterm review, as well as then the bilateral meetings that have taken place on the margins of the G20 between the president and president of other states. On slide 7, we reflect on the DM Moraka's working visit to Eritrea, as well as the visit of the Somali foreign minister to South Africa. Under the Americas and Europe region, we have several engagements that have taken place, and here we reflect on the president's visit to Switzerland, as well as then the Minister Lamola attending the UK Financial Times Summit in London, as well as the official visit to the Vatican by the president and the 16th South African-Spain bilateral consultation. The inaugural binational commission between South Africa and third edition of the Doha Forum, which was attended by our DMs as well as our DG, the South Africa and Saudi bilateral political consultations, as well as the state visit to Vietnam and President Ramaphosa's visit to Malaysia. On slide 12 continued, we have the president's participation in the ASEAN Business and Investment Summit, as well as the various meetings between our minister and other foreign ministers, particularly the UAE, as well as several other Middle East countries. That brings me to the end of the presentation on the structured bilateral mechanisms and the high-level engagement. We then move on to the economic diplomacy the economic diplomacy achievements. We have several achievements that have been noted across our various regions, that's Africa, Asia, Middle East, as well as Americas. These initiatives focus on advancing South Africa's economic interests, expand our trade and investment opportunities, and promote our strategic partnerships. Our missions that have been very active in these initiatives reflect our mission in Chad, our mission in Sao Tome and Principe, as well as our mission in Côte d'Ivoire, Lubumbashi, and Lagos for the Africa region, as well as Ghana and Gaborone. Moving on to slide 15. Our missions in this region under the Americas and Europe. For Europe in particular, we are reflecting on the missions in Norway, our mission in Sweden, the missions in Poland, as well as our mission in Brussels. In the Americas region, it's our missions in LA, in Washington, in Sao Paulo. The last of the targets for economic diplomacy will be our tourism targets, and this is reflected from slide 20 onwards. South African missions abroad are at the forefront of campaigning and promoting South Africa as a preferred tourist destination. Under the in the Africa region, we have the following missions that have been active in these targets. Our mission in Chad, our mission in Brazzaville, as well as in Lagos and in Niger. In the Americas and Europe region, we have our missions in Chile, Venezuela, Rome, Sweden, The Hague, Lisbon, Copenhagen, Vienna, and Dublin, and Washington, Toronto, and Sao Paulo. These activities and initiatives that we have here reflect the work of our missions, and this is what our missions do in terms of what does it mean, what does the work that our missions do, how does it impact on our country, our strategic national interests, and what it is that we want to achieve with the work that gets done at our missions. Moving on to the Asia Middle East, we have the missions in Abu Dhabi, in Kuwait, and in Doha, as well as Tehran, Ramallah, Jordan, Kuala Lumpur, Tokyo, and the Philippines. that are reflected there. The next political target, economic target that we have is the target for the engagements held to facilitate financing opportunities for South Africa. And this work primarily resides in the Africa region. However, we do have a few initiatives that have taken place in Asia, Middle East, as well as in Americas. And the missions that are responsible for this particular initiative is Chad, Lubumbashi, Cairo, Nairobi, Maseru, Port Louis, Uganda, and Sweden. Under the development partnership programs on skills transfer, we have drafted the 2 reports that were reflective of the work done by our missions abroad, and the various missions that are reflected on this reports are Hungary, Canberra, and Sweden. Under regional integration on slide 28, SADC remains a foreign policy priority for South Africa, and in the achievement for Q4, we have the extraordinary summit, Q3 and Q4, we have the extraordinary summit of the SADC heads of state, the SADC legal experts meeting, the extraordinary SADC senior officials meeting, as well as then the SADC Council of Ministers meeting. Under Program 3, we reflect the achievements as a result of hosting the G20 summit, the participation in the BRICS summit, as well as the participation in the UN General Assembly summit. Under the G20, that has been reflected in some of the other presentations to the Portfolio Committee, as well as in reported extensively previously. Under the system of global governance, we reflect the meetings of the UN Security Council, the UN General Assembly 80, the outcomes of this, as well as all committees of the UN and the Peacebuilding Commission. On slide 31, our reports on the human rights focuses on the outcomes of meetings of the Human Rights Council, the World Food Programme, as well as the International Organization for Migration. Under the economic and social development, these are the various meetings of the G20, as well as the G7 foreign ministers meetings and the meetings of the Commission for Social Development. Under the South-South Cooperation on slide 34, here we reflect the various meetings of the South-South, and these are the NAM meeting, the Non-Aligned Movement, 4th BRICS Sherpa meeting, the IPSA meeting, leaders meeting, the BRICS Sherpa and Sherpa meetings, as well as the IPSA and IORA meetings for the 2 quarters. Under the North-South, we reflect on the Commonwealth Foreign Affairs meetings and retreat, the South Africa EU Summit Investment Seminar, as well as the SADC Heads of Mission meeting held in Brussels. That brings me to the end of Program 3 reporting. So we have covered our political reporting, which is Program 2 and 3. Now for public diplomacy under Program 4. For the Q3, we've had the 22 key messages that have been distributed, as well as the 3 triple Ps and the 3 opinion pieces published. All targets achieved in Q3 as well as in Q4. On Q4, it is the 15 key messages, as well as the 3 public participation programs and the 3 opinion pieces. Under Program 4.2, this is where we reflect the service delivery environment of the department. And here we are reflecting on the protocol services that have been rendered, as well as the consular services. Under Q3, we have 14 outgoing visits. And then under the consular services, we have 462 consular services rendered under the various categories that are reflected, as well as the 13,182 documents that have been legalized in Q3. In Q4, we have the 4 outgoing visits as well as 3 incoming visits on slide 39. And we have 462 consular services rendered with a total of then 11,220 documents legalized. In terms of the payments under Program 5, we have 34 million paid out in Q3 and then 249 million paid out in Q4. This is the international transfer of payments. That brings us to the end of Program 4 and 5. Under Program 1, which is the administration of the department, all targets here have been achieved and are reflected in the various presentations. So to highlight just the targets that have been of utmost importance, the 2 business processes automated during the year are reflected as the e-leave processes as well as the SADC monitoring mechanism project that has been finalized. We also know that our Diplomatic Academy certification, the ISO certified management system, has been maintained. We have met the targets on mainstreaming the rights of persons with disabilities, as well as advancing gender equality and women's empowerment through gender mainstreaming. We have had 99 youth employed during this time in the department, and our training programs have taken place as in line with the workplace skills plan. With respect to legal advice and services rendered, we have that has been a responsive target, and we have 67 legal requests and services responded to over the quarters. Thank you, members and chairperson, members and colleagues.
The way they said we must be in the.
And now for the financial presentation.
Honorable Chair, honorable members, Deputy Minister, Acting DG, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Hlengiwe Bengo. I'm the CFO for the department. I'll take you through the financial reports. I will move to the next slide. Based on what is presented on the slide for Q3, the department has spent about 77% of its budget. Of that 77%, the expenditure is 82% with administration, which is high in terms of Q3 projection due to the GWEN Security Solution Project. And then for International Relation Program 2, the spending is at 76%, which is in line with the projections for Q3. And International Cooperation, which is Program 3, the spending is at 84%, which is higher than the projected expenditure for Q3, which is based on the international engagements that were reported during the period. And then Public Diplomacy and State Protocol, Program 4, the expenditure was at 93%, which is high as compared to what was projected. And this was due to the G20 related activities, as well as key international engagements. And then Program 5, which is international transfers, the expenditure was at 59%, which was lower than what was projected for this quarter. And this was due to what was received to be paid for membership contribution in Q3, and then the rest of the amounts were then paid in Q4. Slide number 51, it's just now to indicate the spending in terms of economic classification. I'll move to slide number 52. In terms of Q4, Chairperson and Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members, the department has spent about 101% of its budget. I'll move to the next slide, which is around about 7.4 billion as compared to 7.3 billion that is allocated to the department. In terms of that spending, administration, Program 1 has spent 105%, which is higher than expected, which is again due to the UN security solution, which was not budgeted for in the year 2025-26. The international relations, the program spent about 100%, which is what was expected. International cooperation also spent 100%, which was what is expected. However, public diplomacy and state protocol, they have spent about 110% of its budget. This is also due to G20 related activities, SADC chairship, as well as key international engagements. Then Program 5 only spent about 94% of its budget. This was due to the endowment towards the African Union Peace Fund by the African Union. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable members of the committee, DM voters, DDGs, and colleagues on the call. I'll be taking you through the Q4 performance for the African Renaissance Fund. We can start on slide 5. Yes, thanks, Chairperson. With regards to the Q4 performance for the ARF, we had a total of 11 targets for the quarter, and out of the 11 targets, 9 were achieved. Over and above that, we had 2 targets which emanated from Q2 and Q3, which were achieved under Q4. So that brings the total achievement for the Q4 to 11 out of 11, which is 100%. I'll move to slide 6. With regards to the ARF chairperson and members, the ARF by nature is responsive by nature. Hence, some of the targets will have been planned for a particular quarter, but however, the achievement will go usually happen in the next quarter or the next following quarters, as previously indicated. The next slide. The ARF comprises of 2 programs, Honorable Chairperson and members, which is Program 1, which relates to administration, as well as Program 2, which relates to the project funding. So I'll take you through the achievements for Program 1, where we had achieved 100% of the targets under this program, and in other instances, we have exceeded our targets under this particular program. First one where we exceeded is the number of advisory committee meetings held, where we had 1 planned. However, there were 2 meetings held during the Q4. Then for target number, the indicator number 2 for international conferences attended, this target had been achieved in the previous quarters. There were no targets set for Q4. The next slide, we have number of percentage of requests for funding evaluated by the committee. We had 4 requests evaluated by the committee under Q4, which is 100%. Then a number of projects, ARF projects, monitored for compliance with concurrence. We have 19 projects currently under implementation, and all those 19 projects were monitored under this Q4 compliance with the concurrence letter. The next one is the number of projects completed or due for closure with closeout reports. We had a closeout report for a project that we were funding in relation to the G20, which was closed out in December. So this target was also achieved. The next target is a number of quarterly project progress reports. We have a target of 1 progress report for this quarter. We also did manage to achieve this target. With regards to the project site visits, reports on active projects, we had 1 planned site visit for this quarter. We did manage to achieve this target, Chairperson and members, for this quarter as well. And then I'll move to Program 2, which is project funding. Then 2.1, which is the promotion of democracy and good governance. Chairperson, this is the one area where we had planned to achieve. However, we did not achieve due to the reactive nature of the ARF. So the first part speaks to project proposals received, recommended, and supported by the Minister. We did not have any targets for this quarter. However, we had a target for one concurrence letter to be received from the Minister of Finance in relation to projects and initiatives to promote democracy and good governance. However, we did not achieve this target, whereas we did not receive that particular response in the form of a concurrence letter from the Minister of Finance. Then the next sub-program on the next slide will be SADC elections. So we did not have planned targets with regards to SADC elections for this particular quarter, as there will be elections taking place later in this current financial year. So there were no elections under quarter 4 that we had to fund election observers to attend. Then 2.2, the next slide, which talks to prevention of resolution of conflict. Chairperson and members, this one is similar to the previous one with regards to promotion of democracy and good governance, where we had not planned to receive any proposals and recommend any proposals for this particular quarter. And however, we had planned to receive a concurrence letter from the Minister of Finance with regards to previous recommended proposals. However, in this regard, we did not achieve, as the concurrence letter was not received in this regard. And we move to the next sub-program. Chairperson and members, this is where we have achieved more than we had planned. If you look at the humanitarian assistance, the first target, we did not have a target for this particular quarter. However, we did, due to the reactive nature, we did receive 2 proposals with regards to humanitarian assistance to Jamaica, following Hurricane Melissa that took place in Jamaica, as well as Mozambique humanitarian assistance relating to the floods that affected the southern part of Mozambique, which we had to respond with our assistance in that regard. And then with regards to supported proposals or supported project proposals by the Minister, we did receive support from the Minister of DERCO for the 2 projects, as well as the other projects which relate to humanitarian assistance to Lesotho, as well as the contribution to the Global Fund, Chairperson and members, which was a pledge made during the G20 towards the 8th replenishment of the Global Fund, which contributes towards the fight against malaria, TB, and HIV on the continent. Then we move to the concurrence received. Chairperson and members, we did receive, for all the projects that we had received support from the Minister of DECO, we also received support from the Minister of Finance for the implementation of these particular projects. And the next slide, this is another target where we had not had planned for quarter 4. However, we did manage to receive and support a project which aims to support mediation programs, mediation and negotiations training project in Africa. So this is one where we had exceeded when you compare to what was planned for this particular quarter due to the nature of the ARF. Then the last one, Chairperson and members, is socioeconomic development and integration, where we had not planned target for the quarter, and also we did not have an overachievement in this regard, as there was the funding for a project that was identified in the space was not finalized and funded by the 31st of March. So this is also one of the targets that we did not achieve. The next slide, Honorable Chair and members, is the financial report for the ARF. As at the 31st of March, the ARF receives appropriated funds through DERCO that is allocated by the National Treasury, as well as we receive the interest that we generate from our Reserve Bank account. So that is what we had, the cumulative amounts as at the 31st of March. Then the local and foreign aid assistance talks to the projects that I've spoke to that are currently under implementation which is mainly humanitarian assistance as well as human resource development projects. Then you'll have your accumulated surplus that on an annual basis under Section 53 of the PFMA, we request the National Treasury to allow us to retain that particular surplus in order for us to fund future projects that we're implementing. I think also to touch on that, Chairperson and members, the projects that we are currently funding, which is what I had presented on the previous slides, are funded out of the annual revenue for the ERF, as well as partially from what we received as a approval for the retention of surplus, which we requested in the previous financial year. So part of the 412 million rands is funded through the approval of retention of surplus from the National Treasury. So that is utilized to assist the ERF in achieving and implementing its mandate over and above the annual allocation from the National Treasury. We also have the receivables from which is the loan that was granted to Cuba. We are pleased to announce that we have reached the final and last installment due on this loan, which is in this current month of June. The government of Cuba has honored all the repayments since the initiation of this particular loan, and we are currently at the final implementation of this particular loan. Then the total liabilities, Chairperson and members, represents the projects that I've indicated in the previous slides, the 19 projects that are monitored for compliance by the ARF. So this is comprises of all the projects that the ARF is currently implementing under its mandate. Next slide. Chairperson, I think here it's just to summarize what comprises the revenue, and then as I've indicated also, the expenditure which relates to humanitarian assistance and capacity building projects funded through the annual appropriation, as well as the surplus retention that is approved by the National Treasury. It's also important, Chairperson and members, to indicate that the disbursement of the funds on with regards to implementation of ARF projects is monitored closely on a monthly basis by the Secretariat. So it's quite important that we ensure compliance and we ensure that we implement in accordance to the approval that we received from the Minister of, therefore in compliance with the Minister of Finance. Hence, some of the disbursements are delayed because we have stringent measures in place prior to us dispersing funds to the particular implementing agents. And lastly, Chairperson and members, just to talk to the last repayment from the government of Cuba, which is an amount of 13.3 million, which is expected to be received by the 30th of June this current month. Thank you. I submit.
Chairperson, those are all the presentations we had. We can hand back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DDG, and thank you very much to the team from DERCO for all those presentations. Without wasting any time, I will then take hands from our portfolio committee members. I'm taking hands, honorable members. Okay, noted Honorable Douglas, and then Honorable Nalumango, and then Honorable Smith, and Honorable Muela. Thank you in that order. Honorable Douglas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Honorable Acting Chairperson. And greetings to you and to all the South Africans listening in. And greetings to the Deputy Minister and the Chairperson. I want to greet you all in the name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, as I always do. And in the language of the First Nation Aboriginal people, the Khoisan San Kaites. Firstly, let me acknowledge that DERCO has achieved a very high percentage of its administrative targets if you look at these reports. You know, there's a reporting of approximately 96% of achievement in both quarter 3 and quarter 4. However, as the MK party, we must ask a more fundamental question. what did South Africa actually gain from this, and from this form? I'll go on always, Honorable Chairperson, about outcomes, because when I look at these presentations and I look at what the reports that was put into it, and some of us do read it, we, even if you look at the slides that are named economic diplomacy, for instance, that it's great that it's so bright and it's so bold, but economic diplomacy means something different to me than it might mean to the current DIRCO administration. Economic diplomacy doesn't mean you record all the meetings that you've held, the deals that were signed, the bilaterals that were signed, and look at the relationships that were built through organizations like Westgrow, for instance. The problem that I have with the whole fundamental problem that we have, Honorable Chair, is that the system is wrong, because who's the people that are benefiting from these bilaterals? It's not going to be the average black, colored, Indian, or white South African. It's going to be the elite, because they're the ones that are there. They're the ones that are getting those opportunities. They're the ones that have the JSE top 100 companies. So, for me, the problem is the fundamental issue is that when we read this report carefully, one sees hundreds of meetings, bilateral consultations, investment forums. I mean, it looks like a great success at 96% achieved, but we're only looking at diplomatic dialogues and structured bilateral mechanisms and tourism exhibitions, investment forums, memoranda of understandings, and high-level visits. But once again, the reports read like a visit of activities and meetings with no tangible and measurable outcomes for the black majority in South Africa. A department that sets its own easily achievable targets with zero tangible outcomes for ordinary South Africans is playing the fool with taxpayers' monies, in my, in my estimation, Mr. Chair. Because in reality, I can't tell you that the meeting, let's say, with the UAE has what it's done for the person in the township. I can tell you what it will do for the white monopoly capital businesses who are going to benefit from that deal, but it's not going to do much for the average South African. And that's the truth across every nation in through all our missions, because our very foundation as a department is not focused on the poor. It's focused on the wrong thing. So, why does this report not tell us more about how many factories were built? Because that's what I want to see. That's for me the outcomes I want to see in these reports. How many jobs were directly created, and quantify it. This 20 jobs was created from this tractor factory in Russia and this factory in KwaZulu Natal. That's the kind of detail we want to see in reports, not this high level nonsense that is just a group of people having fun across the world. How many black industrialists was secured export contracts? Put that in writing, black and white. Say, yes, from this meeting, when we came out of this meeting, we secured these many export contracts for these black industrialists, for these colored industrialists, for these Indian industrialists, and for these ordinary South Africans. How many township businesses entered foreign markets? That's what I want to know. Did Sipo's bakery, did he get an opportunity to send his stuff overseas? Or the colored fishermen in Hout Bay, did they get opportunity to send their ship overseas? And do they have to go through a monopoly? Because right now everything's monopolized and only white business can actually trade with foreign markets at scale. So how many women-owned enterprises received investment from overseas? This is the kind of stuff that I want to see come out of these reports, and these reports do not speak to that, Mr. Chair. And this is why it's frustrating, because I'm one of those people that try to do businesses with China, try to do business with America, try to do business in Europe. And it was the most frustrating thing for me for the last 30 years of my life. I couldn't get anywhere. I went overseas, I used my own money. I have pain about this, Mr. Chair, because only certain people got the opportunities. And if you weren't a politically connected person, you were then, and especially if you're someone that's a colored or Khoisan person, you can be in the environment, but you won't get the deals. So, this is the issue, is how many young South Africans have attained international trade opportunities? I can tell you not many, because I tried, and I tried harder than most. How many persons living with disabilities benefited from these engagements? How many traditional leaders were included in South Africa's economic diplomacy program? Because I can tell you, there's a complete blackout when it comes to traditional leaders in this department. They completely don't. Every one of our kings and our monarchs from every tribe and tongue, including Nkoya and San, is completely excluded. Doesn't even exist to this department. It's a shame. You guys talk about the rights of Aboriginal people in North America, the rights of Aboriginal people in Australia, but you don't talk about the rights of Aboriginal people for the Khoisan San. It's an insult to the First Nation Aboriginal people of this country that the DOCO doesn't honor the memory of our people. And not only that, you don't even help on the grassroots. I saw there was a report there about the rooibos tea. Let me tell you about rooibos tea. The Khoisan people don't get anything from that money. There's a couple of people who act as Khoisan people that are connected, politically connected to the ANC. They get money, and it's only a small percentage, like 0.1%. That rooibos tea is indigenous knowledge systems of the Aboriginal people of this country that's been here for thousands of years before anybody else, as proven by DNA. But we have a blind spot when it comes to the Khoisan, as Durko and as this ANC and as GNU. You want to erase us and you want to continue erasing us to the whole world, into international community. Where do you see anything of the Khoisan in any of our missions? Nothing. So, we tired of just talk shops, Mr. Chair. Because it's all just nonsense to me as far as I'm concerned. We cannot have diplomacy become an industry that it merely exists to justify its own existence. We as MK, we have consistently argued that South Africa must move from activity-based diplomacy to outcomes-based diplomacy. At present, economic diplomacy appears heavily geared towards facilitating relationships between government, large white corporations, multinational investors, and established commercial interests. But not for the person in the township, not for the Indian in Chatsworth, not for the white person in Boksburg, not for any of our people. Not for the township people in Mitchell's Plain, not for the Kailicha people, not for any of us. So, there's very little evidence in this report showing how economic diplomacy is being used to deliberately transform ownership patterns, build black industrial capacity, support township economies, or create pathways for rural communities to participate in global value chains. How is somebody from rural KZN or rural Cape Town or the Western Cape, how are they participating in the international community? They don't even get jobs at the mines. They don't even have the opportunity to get our minerals beneficiated and keep the value chains here. We can't even own our own value chain. How can we participate in the global value chains? It's ridiculous. We're arguing about nonsense here. Does Durko even read his own reports? Do you not see what we see? But anyway, Mr. J, I was particularly concerned by references to Amazon and various international investment engagements. This is again a personal issue to me. The committee will recall that the Khoisan San people opposed aspects of the Amazon River Club development in Cape Town because it sits on Khoisan San land and it has immense historical, cultural, and spiritual significance, and yet the city of Cape Town took that land, which is heritage land, which should have been kept for the Khoisan because it's the site of many battles and burials and royal kraals. But they paved over it with an Amazon, which was paid off by the DA and given to white developers. But when we went to court, I was marching outside. They turned our people against ourselves by paying off thugs. We this is also, like the chair said, this is coming home to roost on the ground. It's coming to roost on the ground. We are faced with international foreign companies like Amazon coming here, exploiting our heritage and paving over our Aboriginal heritage. So, the painful reality is that the South African state repeatedly speaks about inclusion and transformation internationally while refusing to fully recognize the indigenous rights of Khoisan people, of Xhosa people, of Zulu people, of Pedi people. None of our monarchs and our traditional leaders are accepted. We don't have, our people should have diplomatic passports like the North American Indians and the Canadian American Indians and the Aboriginals in Australia have. That's what they have. So, South Africa signed the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People in 2007, yet our DIRCO ignores our indigenous communities, and we remain excluded as the indigenous, black and colored and Indian and all our people. The vast majority of the black majority across our people remain excluded from meaningful participation in major economic developments taking place on our ancestral lands. That's why our national policy and our international policy must speak to our local policy, but it doesn't. So that contradiction alone is impossible to ignore. So all traditional leaders from all tribes have been excluded for the last 30 years from participating actively as respected leaders within our communities, as landowners, as mineral rights owners. That we've been excluded from international missions and from trips. And then we get told there's not enough money. That's absolute nonsense. But anyway, as an example, if we look at where we are now, Mr. Chair. The report also, the world is changing, and we need to also look at how we change in that battle for rare earth minerals, in that battle for the future economies of the world. Government speaks about investment in mining, agriculture, tourism, and infrastructure in its reports to us. Yet black, colored, Khoisan, and Indian ownership throughout these value chains remains extremely, extremely limited. So the report also highlights numerous discussions on minerals, mining partnerships, critical minerals, infrastructure, and trade opportunities across Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. Yet South Africa remains largely an exporter of raw materials, still to this day. And so what is said on the stage by the president and by other people is not what happens on the ground. South Africa remains largely an exporter of raw materials. We continue exporting wealth and importing finished products at 10 times the price. We continue exporting jobs and importing other people's unemployment. So we're gonna live in shacks so other people can live in mansions in other countries, in countries that are bigger than us. Where's the strategy to use international relations to secure beneficiation partnerships? We want to see what in writing, in black and white, not only me, but South Africans. We want these meetings and these committee meetings to be about seeing where is that beneficiation partnership, and and how are we going to make sure it's going to be in Kubeka, or it's going to be in different parts of the country where there's resources, Northern Cape or Northwest. How's that? Where's that beneficiation going to be? Where's the smelters going to be? Where's the refineries going to be? Where's the heavy industrial parks, the steel manufacturing parks going to be? Where's the cement factories going to be? We want to see that, but we don't see that. So can we get more down into the details so that we can actually see the benefit of what this department is doing? Where's the strategy? We want to see a strategy to establish sovereign industrial partnerships that support local manufacturing, semiconductor production, battery manufacturing, rare earth beneficiation, pharmaceutical production, and agro processing. These are the future. This is the industries of the future, and we're not using the benefit of the global South relationships we have, with the relationship we have with China and Russia, even our relationship with the EU and others that have technology that they are willing to share. But for some reason, we are managing a decline in this country, even in our international relations. And economic diplomacy, therefore, should not simply help foreign investors access South African resources. You can't just put headings in your PowerPoint and call it economic diplomacy and then continue on with business as usual, promoting white monopoly capital and excluding black industry and PEE companies from all activities reported on this report, as far as I can see, because there's no breakdown of how it benefits the black child. Zero. Telco should help South Africans become owners in the global economy, and this report doesn't do that. It fails us. It actually shows that that they are upholding the same things that happened before 1994. The same relationships, the same monopolies, the same big companies, the same people that took our land, took our minerals, took our resources. Those same people are still the people benefiting from South Africa's big push outward, or should I say, failed big push outward, because we live under austerity, and the department doesn't have enough money because we keep cutting the budget, and our poor foreign servants have to pick up the slack because we can't give the people jobs. We can't even fill the vacancies we have because of this austerity budget. So, Mr. Chair, just in closing, oh, sorry, Ms. Chair, sorry, I apologize. The African Renaissance Fund raises similar concerns. While we welcome humanitarian assistance and development cooperation, the ARF must increasingly become a strategic instrument for African development, South-South cooperation, and skills transfer and industrial cooperation. The fund should not merely respond to requests. I said this before in committee meetings where the structure isn't what it should be. But I do understand that it's also shifting into another form. But when we look at where we are going, we should proactively support African industrialization that supports our industrialization, that we have the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement as a structural development and opportunity for us to expand. What I've traveled throughout Southern Africa, I've traveled to our neighbors and beyond our neighbors, many African countries over many years, going back to when I was a member of parliament for the NCOP and served at Foreign Affairs in 2005 to 2009. And I can tell you, even to today, that most of these countries that are next to us, they import most of their things from other countries. In actual fact, you go to Middle Africa, most of the things come from France and from the Europe and from other places. Everything down from toothpicks to toilet paper to manufacturing goods. And we have the capacity to be able to build our manufacturing base to be able to supply all the needs that they have here. That will create millions of jobs just trading with our neighbors. But we don't see that reflected in our budget and in our outward focus. And even in terms of how the ARF has, in terms of how it's outward focused for internal and domestic benefit. So, Madam Chair, I think I'm going to leave it there. But I would like to say that my comments are made so that we can get South Africa back to where it should be. We must have we mustn't just have meetings and conferences and memoranda. Yes, those are important. It's important to get the actual investments, but we need actual factories, actual jobs. And maybe it's a matter of the department just not reporting it in the right way to us. Maybe it's not that it's not being done. So I'd like to request the department to give it to us in a way that benefits us and that let us consume the content of what you're doing in a way that we can see how it benefits everyone in South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Douglas. But Honorable Douglas, I must caution against the use of language. The committee's responsibility is to interrogate the substance of the presentation and hold the department accountable through evidence engagement. Of course, you are entitled to your view on the presentation and its contents. However, I would request that we maintain the decorum expected of this committee. Describing the presentation as high-level nonsense is not conducive to constructive oversight and engagement. So can we just maintain the decorum, please, honorable members? We are all entitled to
I withdraw that comment, Honorable Chair. I withdraw. It was a moment of passion, so I apologize. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Douglas. Honorable Smith.
Thank you, Chair. My greetings to Deputy Minister Boertes and thank you to the department for the presentation. Chair, I just want to start with the performance measurements that are being used to report back to the committee on the performance of the department. It doesn't necessarily give the committee or South Africa any indication as to the effectiveness of the departments and the programs being rolled out or undertaken. It seems more as a tick box exercise than anything meaningful. And my worry is that we're using the wrong metrics to determine whether or not, for example, South Africa's economic diplomacy agenda is actually being effective. And maybe I'm going to echo some of the sentiments of Honorable Douglas here, but having a presentation telling us that over a particular period of measurement, the department managed to publish X amounts of op-eds and spend X amounts of budget is all fine and well, but it doesn't really tell us what the department has achieved. There's no real sort of tangible assessment of outcome when it comes to these performance assessments and performance overviews. And I think that is something really that, and maybe it's not unique to DIRCO, maybe it is a system from the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation within the presidency, but it is something I think that needs to be looked at. The only metric that really counts if we are looking at these performance assessments is unemployment in South Africa. and economic growth, if we're not making a dent in either of those two metrics, then I think it's safe to say that we are not being successful. And if we are going to ask ourselves those two questions, I think the answer would be a resounding no. We are not managing, even in competition with our peers on the continent, to keep up with the kind of economic growth that we should be expected to achieve at this point. Nor are we creating the kind of employment that we need to provide real economic redress to the majority of South Africans who remain previously disadvantaged. And, you know, it doesn't help for us to have ideological fights and debates over this when we actually all need to sit down and look realistically at the mandates of this department, the domestic policies and legislation that give it effect, and whether or not they are being used to good effect, or whether or not they actually are succeeding. So, you know, until we can actually tackle the performance of this department through that lens, I don't think it's going to tell us really very much in terms of what the department is achieving for ordinary South Africans. And I just want to preface my comments with that, because I think it is important to ask the right questions and to measure the right things when it comes to assessing the performance of a department, particularly DIRCO's and particularly DIRCO's economic diplomacy agenda, because it sits at the core of what the government of national unity is trying to achieve in terms of economic growth and job creation. So I just want to just preface my comments with that. Chair, I note the presentation. I think there were some interesting stats that came out. The one concern that I have, and I say this anecdotally because I recently had the pleasure of speaking with a few Japanese executives at an event, I think about a week or two ago, and they mentioned to me that South Africa is not known in Japan as a tourist destination. Japan obviously is very popular for South Africans as a tourist destination. There's a lot of culture. There's a lot of pull to Japan for South African tourists. But South Africa itself is not marketed in the Japanese market. It's very sort of unknown as a tourist destination. And I just wonder to which extent, or to what extent rather, the department is empowering our mission in Tokyo to run an aggressive tourism campaign for Japanese tourists. And I think that expands into what really is an untapped market in the Asia Pacific region. If we look at countries like Japan, we know that the Department of Home Affairs is courting tourists from India and China, but that sort of initiative should really be expanded to other countries that have very, very developed economies and mobile citizens with an appetite to travel. Japan being one of them. We need to look at Taiwan. I know that we still have a consular representation in Taiwan, and the South African government is committed to uphold consular and trade opportunities between the island of Taiwan and South Africa. But why are we not courting tourists from Taiwan if it's good for the South African economy? Where does this factor into the national interest in terms of job creation and economic growth in South Africa? So it feels as if there are many missed opportunities when it comes to our foreign relations and looking for new economic markets, either source markets for tourism, export markets for goods. It seems as if there is a preference for certain nations over others, or maybe a focus on one particular country over another. And, you know, if we are going to be non-aligned, particularly as it pertains to trade, we need to aggressively approach every available market to South Africa with the same fervor and vigor as you know, any other country that has been invested in up until this point. So it just, one gets the impression that we aren't doing this comprehensively and holistically, especially given dire need for this sort of business and for this sort of income that is necessary in South Africa for economic growth and job creation. The other country that I'd like to mention, which is really conspicuous in its absence in both foreign policy and talks on South-South cooperation, is Australia. And Chair, I know that we haven't had an ambassador to Australia in over 3 years now, and the absence of any visits, at least according to this presentation to Australia, really doesn't feel as if we consider it as a strategic nation to South Africa, and it really should be. Australia is a global leader in mining, for example. If we want to share international best practice, if we want to really engage in increased foreign direct investment in the mining sector, Australia is a key country that we need to be looking at, and it feels as if we're just ignoring it. Are there any plans to engage with the Australian government? Are there any plans to resuscitate South Africa's diplomatic footprint there? Because it really is a country that we shouldn't be ignoring. We can't preach South-South and go to every country in South America, but then completely miss out on key markets in the Asia-Pacific region. And that includes, to a lesser extent, New Zealand as well. So I'm quite interested to see why those countries have yet to be mentioned. Maybe there are plans in the coming quarter or the coming financial year to prioritize these markets, but it really feels as if they're being left out to the detriment of South Africa and the South African economy. And Chair, I really, if we are going to look at, I mean, I don't think this committee really knows what South Africa's economic diplomacy agenda is yet. It seems to be spoken about in this committee, much like the national interest, but we have yet to, as a committee, understand what the definition is. What does DIRCO go to these meetings in? What sort of agenda do we have as a delegation? Are we able to put that agenda on the table? What are we able to achieve when these meetings conclude and these dialogues and bilaterals are finished? Are we able to effect real change within our own region, for example, in terms of diplomacy? Because, if South Africa wants to be greater or more integrated within the SADC region, we have to look at teething problems which relate to governance and democracy that DIRCO seems to be turning a blind eye to. If we continue to see the democratic backslide of the SADC region, it will come to affect South Africa in the long run. It's no coincidence that we have an immigration crisis at the moment in South Africa from various SADC countries. It's because obviously people are crossing borders to seek opportunity and freedom that they cannot find back home. Under governments that are being propped up and supported seemingly by South Africa instead of held to higher standards, held to the standards that we expect as a constitutional democracy. So, it's more than just concluding meetings, ticking boxes, and coming back and saying that you've achieved a target for a particular period. Have you grown the economy? Have you created jobs? Have you created an environment in the SADC region where we can trade on an equal basis, where we can grow regional economies that are interdependent and integrated? And how are we leveraging massive opportunities within regions outside of our own to stimulate low-hanging fruit in the economy, such as tourism, such as investment in mining, and such as developing in the manufacturing sector, which really is key to upskilling South Africans and catapulting them into greater opportunity and out of poverty. So those really are the questions I think that the department needs to answer when it comes to this committee. And in future, I think that a more detailed breakdown of the performance of the department would be much appreciated. Thank you.
I think we've lost Honorable Smith. I think he was having network issues too. Let me move to Honorable Nalumango and then he can finish up when he comes back. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think Honorable Smith, he concluded on his input. Chairperson, let me just start by greeting yourself and the DG and the delegation from the department, as well as all honorable members on the platform this morning. Chairperson, we see under Program 2, and I'm specifically just going to focus on the Program 2 on economic diplomacy and tourism, because that is my niche. Chairperson, we see that under Program 2, it remains a central pillar of the department's work, economic diplomacy, so during this reporting period. And that is consistent with the government's objective, Chairperson, of utilizing international relations to support domestic development. And we see that DIRCO facilitated several engagements that were aimed at attracting foreign direct investment, including exports, promoting tourism, and expanding opportunities for South African businesses. Chairperson, we further see that our diplomatic missions and head office coordinated a range of business forums, trade engagements, and investment promotion initiatives in strategic markets, and particular emphasis was placed on sectors with significant growth potential, including mining, energy, renewable energy, infrastructure development, agriculture, manufacturing, information technology, and last but not least, tourism. Chairperson, so one see that the department reported engagement with the investors, the business chambers, and development partners across several countries, including China, Brazil, Vietnam, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, India, Norway, Sweden, and the United Arab Emirates. And that these initiatives, Chair, sought to position South Africa as a competitive investment destination while supporting government broader economic objectives. So an important development, Chair, during the reporting period was the introduction of a new performance indicator, and I think the other honorable members have missed this. There's a new performance indicator focusing on facilitating financing opportunities through development finance institutions. And this, Chairperson, reflects an increasing recognition of the role that diplomatic engagement can play in mobilizing development finance for infrastructure, industrialization, and economic development projects. So the department reported engagements involving institutions such as the World Bank and Shelter Afrique, as well as initiatives linked to infrastructure financing within the region. Still under Program 2 on tourism. Chairperson, the department continued to support government's efforts to grow tourism sector through targeted promotional campaigns and participation in international tourism events. South Africa's missions that organized and participated in tourism exhibitions, trade fairs, destination marketing, campaign and engagements with travel operators in key markets across Europe, Latin America, Asia, and the Middle East. So, Chair, these initiatives form part of broader efforts to position South Africa as a preferred tourism destination and support economic recovery through increased visitor arrivals. Now, Chair, I'm an alternate in this committee, but I'm chairing the Portfolio Committee on Tourism. Now, I'm going to give stats to our honorable members who are perhaps not aware of these stats, and then they can, of course, go and research them. The tourism contributed 4.9% to our country's GDP, whilst broader economic contribution is estimated, Chair, at 8.9 to 9.2%. The World Travel and Tourism Council, Chair, estimated 8.9%, generating 659.8 billion on direct investment and supply chain impacts. And the tourism, and I heard our honorable members, the concern in terms of job creation. Now, tourism has contributed 1.8 million to direct and indirect jobs in our country. So those are the stats, Chair, that tourism has contributed to our country's economy. And I do further have a question. Since tourism remains one of our critical pillar of economic recovery, with South Africa recording approximately 10.5 million international visitors during the reporting period, which DIRCO-led tourism diplomacy initiatives contributed most significantly to sustaining and growing this performance? Furthermore, how is the department ensuring that tourism promotion in key markets translate into increased revenue, longer stays, repeat visitation, and meaningful contribution to the GDP and employment? We have seen, and yes, Honorable Smith have mentioned this, that there are markets that we have not yet penetrated, like the Asian market, and there are initiatives from the Department of Tourism, Chair, in terms of trying to promote South Africa as a tourism destination in those markets. We can say the regional market, the African continent, have contributed 75% to tourist arrivals in South Africa. And that also speaks to our regional integration. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nalibango. Honorable Tsongo.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings to yourself, colleagues, and the team from DECO and South Africans following our committee online. Now, Chair, maybe we must begin by saying that it is quite important for Africans to begin to appreciate one another. When you see on this face of Africans being persecuted who are living here in South Africa, and sadly someone has lost his life because he's Tonga speaking person. He was found in Mosel Bay. And now this really brings the danger of Afrophobia, because after they're done with xenophobic attacks, they are now coming for all of us with our races, that if, since yourself, Chair, you're Xhosa speaking, you will be told to go back to the Eastern Cape and only stay in the Eastern Cape. Myself, Swati speaking, I'll be told to go back and stay in Mpumalanga because that's where Swati speaking people are found. And that's very dangerous. It's a dangerous terrain we have entered. People are going to lose their lives. We saw first in KZN with the spokesperson of SEPS in KZN, who was Venda speaking, who was told that he's a Kwerekwere, he needs to leave because he speaks Venda, and Venda is a South African official language. And any South African can work in any part of South Africa where they want to work and where they get a job. So it's a dangerous terrain that South Africa has entered into. And this onslaught of violence is allowed and really looks like it's sponsored by the state, because our South African state agencies are not speaking to these matters. They are not arresting people who are pronouncing violence on people. People have been given a deadline of 30 June that they must leave South Africa. And these vigilante groups, they are not officials of Home Affairs. They are not competent in dealing with verification of documents. If this is not an apartheid style of governance that we're going to enter into, I don't know what is it, Chair. Because during apartheid, people were made to walk around with their dompas to prove that they are South Africans, to prove that they belong in the area in which they were found. So we're entering into that space, and we really want to call on South Africans to be rational and not allow vigilante groups to take over their communities, because this is a dangerous terrain we've entered into. We've seen a big group of people, I think about 300 people from Ghana, leaving the soil of South Africa, saying they are terrorized. And some of these people are terrorized right in front of SEPS. And no one gets arrested, no one gets prosecuted. Nothing is being done. That's why we're saying this violence looks like it's sponsored by the state, because if it was not sponsored by the state should have reacted, should have acted a long time ago, and not allow this vigilante group to continue as they are doing, singing songs and chanting Shangane Hamba. When you say Shangane Hamba and a Tonga speaking man gets to be killed, then you must take accountability, because you are the one who are saying Shangane Sugendleleni, Shangane Sizokubulala, and indeed they've killed a Tonga speaking person. So I want us to just, as this committee, really call for these vigilante groups to stop, but also for our law enforcement agencies to act, which is important to save life and protect fellow South Africans and fellow residents of South Africa from these violent acts, because all of us are not going to be safe. Chair, there's no one who's going to be safe anywhere. in South Africa, because we'll be told that no, leave. Why do you come and stay here? Leave. I'm trying to think in general of myself. My kids, they are Pedi speaking because their surname is Pedi. I'm Swati speaking. Perhaps I'll be separated from my kids, being told that, okay, take your kids. We must live in Limpopo. You must live in Mpumalanga because you are Swati speaking. Our families have integrated, Chair, and we must live peaceful and in harmony with one another. And when we say that, it's not like we're condoning crime. Criminality has no nationality. So criminals must be arrested and must be taken to task. If there's anyone who must be taken to task, is Home Affairs that is given the responsibility and is duty bound to protect the borders of South Africa. But these borders that everyone wants to protect, these borders that were developed in the Berlin Conference, where there was not even a single African person participating in that process. But anyway, that's a duty of Home Affairs to protect the borders. They must do their job. We know officials of Home Affairs get bribed on a daily basis to compromise our security and to allow people who don't have the necessary documentation to enter our country. They failed on their duties, yet we blame the people who are now vulnerable and find themselves exposed to this kind of activities here in South Africa. Now, I want to speak now to the report, Chair. Every time when we do these reports, even when we're doing before the department presented their budget, we complained about this. The targets that the department sets for itself, it is a tick box exercise. For me, that's what it is. It's just merely a tick box exercise. It's like a gentleman's slap. We agree we are going to have these bilateral meetings, and then ministers, deputy ministers, they travel all over the world just to have meetings. Then after the meetings, then what? You know, I propose, Chair, that when we get reports, I think we've said this many times, it's like now we sound like a scratch record. When we have reports of this nature, it must indicate that Minister so had a bilateral meeting in this country. And after that bilateral meeting, what are the tangible results that followed? Which businesses then were able to sign enter agreements? Which investment was able to be attracted after that engagement? How many jobs has that investment created for South Africans? And how many opportunities has that bilateral created for South Africans to enter into the market of that country, where the minister or deputy minister had these bilateral meetings that we get reported about? Because just to report on the bilateral meetings, then what? We must get value for our money. Then what? After meeting counterparts from different parts of the world, then what? What followed? And thank you to Honorable I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce the name, Nalumango, who's the chair of tourism. No, you know, my for that information you have shared with us. Perhaps when we get to be told about these statistics that these meetings have created jobs, how many jobs and how many of those jobs are permanent? We must not be excited by jobs. You hear that it created jobs, only temporary jobs. You will know when facilities that we have here in South Africa, the big facilities like your Nasrec, when there's a political party hosting an event or a conference there in Nasrec, a conference for 4 days, 5 days, there's temporary jobs that to be created because they need a lot of staff to be able to handle the number of delegates that will be hosted there. But those are not sustainable jobs. It's temporary jobs for 3 or 4 days, or even at times there's an event hosted or meeting. It's temporary job for 1 day. So these statistics, we must be told how many of these jobs were permanent and how much were they likely to get paid from these jobs, so that we can get to really weigh and see if these milestones were achieving. Are they worth the paper they are written on? Are they worth us mentioning them and really celebrating them? Because if a job is created for 1 day, it's not sustainable. A person gets to be employed once a year. That is not sustainable. They will not even sustain themselves throughout the year. You find that they got to be a waiter for a function of they were hosting meetings, and then after the meeting is a 2-day conference, a person got paid 500 for a day. That's 1,000. That money is not enough to sustain that person for the whole year. Is the same argument that the EFF since establishment has put on the table, that we cannot celebrate EPWP jobs because they are temporary jobs of 12 months. After 12 months, those people don't get their contracts to be renewable. It's not sustainable. Those people become easily cheap, disposable labor. So when we speak of jobs, we must speak about sustainable jobs that are permanent jobs. If it's seasonal, in farms, there's seasonal workers during November, December. November, December. In the lychee farms, they get to hire seasonal workers who are going to pick the lychees, the ripe lychees from the trees. Those are seasonal workers that only get employment for a period of 2 months between late October, November, and early December. It's a period of like 8 weeks. Then they're done. It's done for them. Those people, they then struggle for the rest of the 10 months remaining of the year. They are without a job. So when we speak of jobs, it must be a sustainable job. What is it that these investments are attracting? And after these meetings, then follows what? Another burning issue, Chair, on our side is the fact that the companies that are still benefiting from these trade agreements that are signed in this democratic government is the same companies that used to benefit during the apartheid government. They are all, go and check all the companies. If we say, and I think we've said many times from last year, that in the committee we must be given, we must bring trade. When we bring trade, and industry and competition department and have a joint meeting with them, they must tell us how many South African companies are operating in this country. We go, okay, these are the South African companies that are operating in the US, and then this is how much they are making from the US. How many of those companies are black owned? How many of those companies are white owned, Indian owned, colored owned, and then how many are owned by women, how many are owned by the youth? We need to break it down, because unfortunately South Africa is designed, everything that we do in South Africa, even Home Affairs puts us demographically, that your ID is written African, colored, white, African, Indian. So we can't shy away from wanting statistics to be given to us in that fashion, that tell us how many Indian companies, if they are South African companies, are operating in the US, and what is the total capital they've injected there, and how many jobs have they created. And when it comes back to South Africa, what is the tax that South African government is collecting from these companies? Because we are always talking about tax avoidance and tax evasion. We must know that, okay, this company is a South African company, is generating this amount of money from India, from China, from Brazil, for wherever across the globe. And then how much is this company contributing in tax revenue into South Africa, so that we check, is it working in the manner in which, is this company really assisting South Africa? Why will ministers run up and down to even go and resolve problems of businesses across the globe and say that these companies, South African companies operating in this part of the world, they get problems when it's time to get or retrieve their monies that are in that country to bring it back to South Africa? When a minister enters into that space and speaks to that government, then what? What is the benefit to South Africa? If you check these companies, majority of them, 98%, 99% of them, they are owned by male Afrikaners. We can't shy away from that. Go and check in the one field that we all should be interested in, if really, Chair, we are revolutionaries, that in the manner we say we are. Check the value chain in agriculture. If you check the value chain in agriculture, you will cry tears. Is owned by male Afrikaners. You check even the management and the board of all those companies, male Afrikaners. Why? Why is that in a democratic country? Where are the people of South Africa? Why is it that we are not having deliberate plans and programs to ensure that we open the space to previously disadvantaged groups to participate in these things? There's too much red tape in the business of import and export is too much red tape. What is government doing to reduce that red tape that our people are confronted with on a daily basis when trying to enter into this market? Where is the one stop where businesses, small businesses, can go to and say, we are trying to enter, we are interested, we're a small scaling farm business, we are busy, we've got a lot of mangoes, we are trying to enter, we want to export our mangoes, and then this company can go to at a one-stop shop and be assisted how to enter the market, how to export mangoes, where is the market, and then they get to check. Government tells them that there's a huge market for mangoes in 1, 2, 3 countries. This is the forms. Let us help you to apply as a small business so that you can also enter into this market, and we invest in those things. We've got the NYTA, Chair. I don't know how many times we've mentioned this. We've got the NYTA that funds companies of the youth of South Africa. Why we don't go and partner with NYTA as DERCO and say, NYTA, these companies that we have funded who are selling these 1, 2, 3 products, the following products are in demand, or the following services is in demand in these parts of the world. Bring these companies that you have NYTA on your database, come to DERCO, let's workshop them on how to enter this market and export their products. Now, that is a proactive government. We are not reactive. We are being proactive. We are taking the initiative. They say, okay, government is already spending money on you. You are into goat farming. Government is already spending money on you. There's a big market for goat meat, perhaps in India. Then let us assist you to register and ensure that you are able to export a goat meat from South Africa, goat milk, and the meat and all other byproducts from the goat to this market. There's a market because we have already spent money on you. It's important for this business to grow and be sustainable because it's creating jobs for our people. You are a young person. You want this business to grow because we can't have our money going down the drain. Then that shows proactivity from government than to wait for people to approach us. Let's look at that dynamic. If we can't have a setup like that between DERCO, DTIC, and small business enterprise, and have a one-stop shop where we can bring in these people funded through NYTA and say, since we funded you, then this is what we're going to assist you to expand your business. And these talk shops that are happening called bilateral meetings, please, Chair, I'm asking again, I'm asking very nicely. Can we be told that, okay, Minister met with counterparts of India on this day, and from there, what did even our embassy in India do to ensure that they attract investments that are coming or emanating from that bilateral meeting? Then we are told that, okay, the engagement of India that happened January 2026, after that meeting, we're able to get 3 businesses from India who came and put direct investment into South Africa. This is the product. This is the amount of investment they've put into South Africa. These are the jobs that are going to be created from there, so that we are able to quantitatively measure that this work that is done by our ministers and deputy ministers, it emanates to what? You will find that now we're speaking like this, saying that it looks like it's gentleman's meeting, it's just a tick box exercise. Guarantee there is valuable work that that they get or produce from these meetings. It's just that it's not properly reported to into our committee. So we're just asking, Chair, that properly report on these things and these activities so that we're able to see the work that is being done, if it's proper, and we're able to really say this minister is doing well in this department, has been able to attract this investment from this meeting. Then there is value for our money, because when they travel, they're not traveling out of their own pockets. It's money of government that gets to be spent. We must get value for that money. We must demand that there's value from this money we're putting in as government. That's all I really wanted to say, Chair. Otherwise, if I repeat most of the things that have been said by other colleagues, I will sound like a broken record. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mhlongo. Honorable Muela.
Thank you, Chair, and greetings to you and our honorable members, and also DM Butes, and senior officials of the DERCO and all the South Africans following these proceedings through our visual networks. Chair, let me welcome the presentation on performance from the department and also indicate that in this quarter 3 and quarter 4, there's a strong performance in terms of the achievement, which they are indicating 25 out of 26 for quarter 3, and also in quarter 4 there is 26 and 27 in terms of the planned targets which department have put itself and be able to achieve 90%, 96% in both quarter 3 and quarter 4. Chair, also I want to indicate that this overall performance reflects a high institutional stability, and it demonstrates the department's ability to deliver on its mandate despite the responsibilities that department is associated with, like having the G20, which we hosted in this country, and expanded diplomatic engagements that they continue to have bilaterally and multilaterally across the globe in ensuring that they pursue our foreign diplomacy. The performance also indicates that the department continues to align its activities with the objectives that we have set as the country, which are the National Development Plan, from Medium Development Plan and broader government priorities relating to economic growth and international cooperation, which continue to pursue. Chair, also I want to make my inputs with regard to the political diplomacy and bilateral relations that the department continue to have on utilizing political diplomacy as a key instrument of advancing South Africa's strategic interests and strengthening international partnerships. Through the reporting period, numerous structural bilateral mechanisms by national commissions, political consultations, and high-level visits were undertaken across Africa, Europe and America, Asia and Middle East in pursuing our foreign diplomacy. On the African continent, Chair, the department facilitated the successful midterm reviews with Namibia, Mozambique, resulting in the signing of agreement with Mozambique in the area of higher education, which is very much recommendable, and a search for rescue cooperation. South Africa also continued to play an active role in supporting peace building and conflict resolution initiatives. We have seen, Chair, the Deputy President Paul Mashatile, he undertook a visit to South Sudan in his capacity as special envoy there, while the department remained engaged in developments in the Horn of Africa and other areas of strategic importance. The department further strengthened relations with key partners across the continent, Chair, through engagements with Madagascar, Somalia, Ethiopia, Eritrea. These engagements form part of Africa's broader commitment to advancing regional stability, African unity, and continental development. In Europe, Chair, and America, we've seen the president undertook the state visit to Switzerland, Ireland, and Brazil, while senior government leaders participated in engagements with the European Union and various strategic partners. These visits sought to strengthen political relations while also advancing economic cooperation, investment opportunities, and skills development partnership. I think honorable members, they have stipulated much on this particular cooperation on economic development and investment to say the in terms of indicators, they need to report on those areas where there is tangible results in with regards to these visits that are undertaken at a high level. on the presidency and also ministry, and also that involves that particular cooperation from senior officials of government. In Asia and Middle East, Chair, we've seen South Africa deepening relations with major strategic partners, which is a significant milestone. Was the elevation of relations between South Africa and Vietnam to the level of a strategic partnership. The department also maintained a strong engagement with China, which we pursue, and we continue to have deep relations, and also on our policy of one China policy in terms of diplomacy. South Arabia and United Arab Emirates, India and Malaysia. South Africa's participation in discussions relating to developments in Palestine and broader Middle East peace efforts further reflected its continued commitment to international peace and justice. Collectively, these engagements contributed towards strengthening South Africa's diplomatic footprint and expanding opportunities for political, economic, and development cooperation. Chair, all these achievements, Chair, also in our regional integration and Africa agenda, which is at the core of our agenda as South Africa through our SADC and also through African Union, which when we were having an Africa Day, we elaborated much on it, and also we have agreed that we need to pursue this particular avenue and get to an area where we'll have a high level discussion across the challenges that we're having in South Africa with regard to foreign and immigrants, either legal or illegal, that we need to have a frank discussion from that level, open dialogue with the community, with partnerships, thinking tanks, academics, and all civil society organizations, so that we can have a discussion about this matter. I agree with Honorable Mkonko on this one, that we should allow processes to be followed in a proper way where law takes its course. We cannot allow vigilante to take part, but we also have a responsibility as the portfolio committee to have thorough discussion in this particular matter with people who are involved, all African countries, AU on board, SADC on board, so that we can come with solutions on how we can keep this particular matter from escalating to the West, so that we play our role. As I've said, Chair, that the regional integration and African agenda, which is on top of our list, the advancement of the African agenda remained a central feature of South Africa's foreign policy during the reporting period. The department actively participated in meetings and processes of the South African Development Community, which is SADC, the South African Customs Union, SACU, and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Particularly, attention was given to South Africa's preparations and responsibilities relating to SADC leadership structures. The department also continued to support regional integration efforts aimed at improving trade, investment, infrastructure development, and political cooperation across the continent. South Africa's participation in continental structures continues to reflect government's commitment to Africa unity, regional stability, and sustainable development that will bring the Africa we want, the Africa that will bring everyone on board. Chair and honorable members, in terms of international cooperation and multilateral diplomacy, the indicators have shown, Chair, that South Africa in this platform also is one of the most significant achievements during the reporting period, which was the successful hosting and coordination of South Africa's G20 presidency and leaders summit. The G20 presidency provided South Africa with strategic platform to alleviate issues affecting developing countries and to advance priorities aligned with the African agenda. The presidency, Chair, focused on issues such as debt sustainability, disaster resilience, climate financing, the just energy transition, critical minerals governance, and development financing. South Africa's leadership of the G20 was widely regarded as an opportunity to strengthen the voice of Africa and the global south within international decision-making structures. I remember when we met with the EU delegation, they have mentioned very much their interest in terms of the just energy transition, which is one of the areas which the indicators can also show tangible results in terms of this achievement with the money that they've put in the country in order to support just energy transition, to ensure that we are also part of the global agenda to put that particular matter. Beyond the G20 chair, the department remained actively engaged within the United Nations system, the African Union, BRICS Plus, IBSA, the Non-Aligned Movement, and other multilateral forums. These engagements enabled South Africa to continue advocating for multilateral cooperation, peaceful conflict resolution, sustainable development, and reform of global governance institutions. Department multilateral work remains important in ensuring that South Africa contributes to shaping the international responses to global challenges while protecting its national interest. Chair, on the level of public diplomacy and protocol and consular services, which is at the core of our foreign diplomacy, the department has exceeds its targets relating to public diplomacy with both quarters 3 and 4. Efforts focusing on communicating South Africa's foreign policy position, promoting awareness of international developments, and strengthening engagement with domestic stakeholders. Public participation programs, which must be at the core and the center of our interaction as the portfolio committee. As the chair, when he was opening this meeting, he indicated on our foresight in terms of our strategic people-centered oversight that we have adopted as a policy, as the portfolio committee, that if indeed we advocated that particular matter, which would have kept most of these occurrences that are happening here in South Africa, which now must be at the core of our interest as the portfolio committee. We also want to lobby the department to come on board in this particular matter, as they will also assist them in terms of alleviating these challenges that we're having. And that will also contribute to the tangible areas and activities that will be happening on the ground. So in this one, Chair, we also want to lobby the department to come on board so that we can be together in implementing this particular strategy. Strategic communication initiatives and opinion pieces were utilized to enhance understanding of South Africa's role in international affairs and to strengthen public awareness of foreign policy issues. The department also maintained a strong performance in relation to protocol and consular services. Protocol services were rendered for official visits and international engagement, while consular services continue to provide support to South Africans abroad. The department handled hundreds of consular cases during the reporting period, including cases involving distressed citizen, documentation services, and legalization requests. The continued delivery of these services remains important in ensuring that the South Africans receive assistance when interacting with foreign jurisdictions and international institutions. Chair, also, what is also very important, Chair, that comes out of the this particular presentation, Chair, is the key observations that the departments have engaged on, which I have already alluded on some of them. Demonstrated on high-level performance during the period characterized by substantial international responsibilities, the successful hosting of G20, the significant achievement and strengthen South Africa's international standing. DERCO continues to align its diplomatic engagements with government's economic priorities, placing greater emphasis on investment attraction, trade promotion, and development partnerships. This particular trade promotion investment attraction and development partnerships, it comes strongly from honorable members that we need to have tangibles with regard to who are these particular people. Are these people who are beneficiary in this? Is it not only a particular race that is benefiting, or are all South Africans benefiting? Who are these South Africans that are benefiting in this particular process? I think it's going to be very much important that we pursue and have that uh, uh, core joint meetings with trade and industry, because that is where we'll have more tangibles in terms of who are trading, what is the demographics, who are benefiting, are young people part of the demographics in terms of race, who are the most dominant beneficiaries of all these injections that are coming into our economy. I think this reflects an important shift towards ensuring that foreign policy contributes directly to domestic development objectives. The department also maintains strong performance in consular services, as I've already alluded. Notwithstanding these achievements, Chair, we continue to oversight will be required to assess the long-term developmental impact of diplomatic engagement, monitor implementation of bilateral agreements, and ensure prudent financial management in the context of growing international obligations. We also want to commend the department to at the work that they continue to pursue with the department with the country of Cuba, which is our long-standing relationship partner during our struggle times, which we have a very strong bond and ties in terms of many aspects of our diplomacy, which we continue to enjoy our solidarity with the Cuban people. I think on African Renaissance funds and all that, we also applaud the government to continue to have these strong ties with our historic relations early in this sense, the department, the country of Cuba. And Chair, I also have some questions for oversight that came out of this presentation that I need clarity from DERCO in this particular regard. The first question, department reports extensive economic diplomacy engagement across priority markets and sectors. Could department elaborate on the most concrete and measurable outcomes achieved during this period, particularly in terms of actual FDI inflows, concluded investment agreements, export growth, and employment creation? How is DERCO ensuring that these engagements move beyond promotion to binding, verifiable economic deliverables with clear developmental impact? I think this came strongly from all honorable members of the Portfolio Committee. South Africa's G20 presidency and Leaders Summit represented a defining moment in our global diplomacy, particularly in advancing the interests of the Global South. Beyond the successful hosting of the summit, what tangible and implementable outcomes have been achieved in relation to debt sustainability, climate finance reform, just energy transition financing, and critical minerals governance? How is DERCO ensuring that the G20 legacy is institutionalized and sustained beyond the presidency cycle? Despite simultaneously managing the G20 presidency, SADC chairship responsibilities, and a high volume of bilateral engagement, the department achieved a consistent 96% performance rate. Could the department explain the key coordination and management mechanisms that enable DERCO to maintain this level of efficiency under pressure, and what institutional lessons have been identified for future high demand diplomatic circles. And lastly, Chair, as I conclude, several high-level visits and structured bilateral mechanisms resulted in agreements across sectors including education, infrastructure, trade, and security cooperation. Could the department clarify how DERCO is tracking the implementation of these agreements, and which specific agreements from this reporting period have already produced measurable and visible developmental outcomes? I think, Chair, in my conclusion, Chair, the DERCO strong achievement on quarter 3 and quarter 3, which is 96% achievement rate in both quarters. The department successfully advanced South Africa's foreign policy objectives through strengthened bilateral relations, active participation in multilateral institutions, economic diplomacy initiatives, and a successful hosting of South Africa's G20 presidency. We want to ensure that these achievements do not just be on the paper, but be implementable achievements that could assist in terms of pursuing our foreign diplomacy abroad, and also bring tangible achievements that South Africans, most particularly young people that are vast in majority, deep in their unemployment, to achieve and get assisted through this particular diplomatic economic relations that we are having. So, Chair, that is my my submission. Thank you very much, Comrade.
Thank you very much, Honorable Muela. Before I hand over to the department, I think on my side, I just want to emphasize, our post G20 presidency and what it means for us, as Africans. I think the department must try and establish a G20 legacy plan, with obviously the quantifiable outcomes for South Africa, but also see where G20 takes us in terms of the country. So I think that's what I would want to put forward. But nonetheless, I'll hand over then to the department for the inputs on what has been articulated by the honourable members. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. I will go first and deal with a number of the questions that have been raised by honourable members, and then I will hand over to my colleagues to add and perhaps pick up the questions that I may have missed. Chair, if I could start with the issue that you've raised regarding legacy project arising from South Africa's chairship of the G20. Ambassador Mabongo will deal with that. He is in the meeting, so he'll be able to deal with that quite comprehensively. It's been raised by other honourable members as well. Perhaps then to go to the topical issue of the challenge of international migration that we are confronted with, and agree with the honourable members that we need to continue to make this call, that there must be a better way for concerns to be addressed as raised by South Africans. What we shouldn't do, as honourable members have raised, is to give ammunition to South Africa's detractors, because what is currently happening is giving ammunition to our detractors. There's been a lot of grandstanding, but there's also been attempts by those who seek to undermine South Africa's moral authority, particularly following the decision to approach the ICJ with the genocide that we argue is being visited upon the people of Palestine. So what is happening here is giving ammunition to those who want to undermine our moral authority. So we agree with the honorable members that the conversations and engagements with South Africans should continue. At DERCO, we are also having ongoing engagements with the African ambassadors in particular. 2 weeks back, we were in the Kruger National Park, where Minister Lamola, in his capacity as the chair of the Council of Ministers for the region, convened a retreat. The main objective of that retreat was to afford SADC foreign ministers an opportunity to reflect on geopolitical developments and then ask the question, how should the region respond? This was done. In addition, there was a conversation around this issue because there must be a collective approach in trying to find solutions. We've reflected on the push and pull factors that are driving international migration. And of course, there are advantages and disadvantages. All of these things are being discussed by South Africa and the African ambassadors in particular. So this will be an ongoing conversation, and we welcome the other initiatives to convene conversations around this. On the matter regarding how we package our reports as DERCO, honorable members are correct. I think the challenge for us as a department over the years has always been, what do we include and what do we exclude in our reports? Just one example, honorable members would know this, that for the last couple of years at the South African diplomatic missions abroad, you don't have trade attaches. You also don't have officials from the Department of Tourism who would then handle the tourism file. So in addition to the political management of relations with these countries, DERCO diplomats are also handling the economic diplomacy file because there are no trade attaches. We are also responsible for tourism promotions campaigns. So when you see tourists arriving in South Africa in numbers and thousands and millions, you can trace that directly to the work that has been done by DERCO diplomats. So Honorable Nulumango, the chair of the Tourism Portfolio Committee, is absolutely correct. The statistics show tremendous growth in tourism to South Africa incoming, which translates directly to the creation of both temporary and permanent jobs. She has given the stats in terms of the number of jobs that have been created, but also the revenue that has been generated arising from tourism and the contribution to the GDP and the fiscus. So perhaps we just need to improve how we report on this. And I don't think it would be a problem that you'll find the same report from the Department of Tourism, because it is correct that we should also reflect that we contributed to these numbers. So we take that. I think we'll just have to improve how we do our reporting. But the work, we can demonstrate that it has been done by DERCO diplomats. It's the same thing when it comes to economic diplomacy. We do have the stats, we do have the numbers, but as I say, we just have not been reflecting on this in our reports. For example, there are more than 400 South African businesses operating in over 40 African countries in mining, agriculture, retail, property, and infrastructure. And here's the other thing. We as a country have also contributed in foreign direct investment, if you want to call it that, into Africa, creating jobs. And I suppose this is one of the messaging we can build into dealing with the issue of migration that we're talking about. I mean, if you look at a South African company like MTN, for example, it operates in more than 20 countries across Africa and the Middle East. In fact, if you speak to MTN, they will tell you their Nigerian business now has far outpaced their South African business in terms of the number of subscribers and the money that they make. So that story is there. And the one thing that we appreciate as DERCO is that South African corporates now know that they cannot go into the continent without working with DERCO. Yesterday, Minister Lamola at DBSA had an engagement with South African businesses, primarily those that are doing business on the continent. This week, we're hosting the president of Kenya. I do know that one of the engagements he's going to have is with two South African banks. You could call them rival banks, but they are jointly hosting him. And one of the conversations is around how do they grow further in Kenya. They're already there doing business, but there is an ambition to grow their presence even further and create jobs in those countries, but also bring back the money back to South Africa and pay tax here. So that story is there, and we can demonstrate DERCO's contribution to these numbers and the work that's happening. So I suppose the challenge is how do we reflect this in our reports? As I said, I think the other questions I will ask my colleagues to weigh in, particularly the issue around the G20 legacy and what we are doing there. Ambassador Mabongo, if I can hand over to you, and then perhaps I can come back to wrap it up before we hand back to the chair. Thank you.
Is Ambassador Mabongo in the platform? I don't seem to see him in the list of participants.
Okay, perhaps CFO, if you can also deal with the other questions. If I've covered all questions, that's also okay.
Acting DG, you have covered all the questions. Thank you.
Chairperson, thank you very much. I think those are the issues we thought we should respond to. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, are there any follow-ups? Based on the response we just received, any follow-ups from your side? Honorable Mhlongo, I take it that is a legacy hand. Okay.
I'm sorry, Chair, it was a legacy hand.
Okay, no, thank you. I see that.
We're fine, Jay. Thank you very much. We're happy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Douglas, and thank you very much to the department. I think the representation, the responses were sufficient. I think we can move to our closure as a meeting, closing of the meeting, rather. Colleagues, as we conclude today's engagement on the department's fourth quarter performance report and the African Renaissance Fund for the financial year of 2025-2026, allow me to thank members of the committee who participated in this meeting with their valued inputs, and to thank the department and the team in absentia, and also thank our administrative teams from both Parliament and DERCO for the contributions that led to today's committee meeting. Today's discussion has reaffirmed an important reality that performance reporting is about measuring the extent to which our work advances South Africa's national interests and strengthens our role on the continent and globally. What's important, honorable members, is to improve the lives of our people. I think that is why we are all here in Parliament today. And as a Parliament, our responsibility is to ensure that every rand allocated translates into meaningful outcomes and greater accountability in a foreign policy that supports development, peace, economic growth, and solidarity with the peoples of Africa and the world. As we enter Youth Month, we are reminded that the future of our country and continent rests on opportunities we create for young people today and which was central in our today's discussions. Our international relations agenda and our economic diplomacy efforts and development partnerships must increasingly translate into tangible opportunities for youth through education, skills development, trade, and employment. As I conclude, honorable members, the youth of 1976 challenged us to dream for a better South Africa. The youth of 2026 are challenging us to build it. So let us therefore ensure that our oversight work remains purposeful, people-centered, and focused on delivering a future worthy of their sacrifices and aspirations. With those remarks, honorable members and colleagues, I thank everyone for their participation and formally adjourn the meeting. I thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.